Thank you.
An anti-submarine frigate, the perfect backdrop for a Prime Minister on the offensive.
Those slurs, I'm not going to cop sledging at Australia.
Scott Morrison returning fire on the French president.
Hello, how are you? Andrew Probyn from the ABC.
After Emmanuel Macron branded him a liar on the world stage.
Do you think he lied to you?
I don't think. I know.
I've got broad shoulders. I can deal with that. I can deal with whatever people throw at me.
Mr Morrison sank the French subs contract in September.
This submarine was not the submarine Australia needed. AUKUS.
The government convincing the US and UK to instead build Australia a nuclear-powered fleet. The president still seethes at the snub.
Very bad news for the trust.
Someone close to the Prime Minister leaking to newspapers a text message from the French President to the PM 2 days before the tricontinental launch of AUKUS. Mr Macron asked, should I expect good or bad news for our joint submarines ambitions?
And what did you message back?
I said I thought it was very important that we spoke.
But they didn't speak. The PM saying the President didn't want to hear the bad news.
I would have preferred to have told him directly. But that opportunity, that call wasn't offered.
The attempted damage control by selectively leaking private text messages is quite an extraordinary step.
Mr Macron's attack on the Prime Minister has made a splash around the world.
The Australian Prime Minister is denying he lied.
Scott Morrison's reputation and international standing have been damaged by the French President's blistering attack and by US President Joe Biden's assessment that the subs deal was handled clumsily. The PM's defence is that Emmanuel Macron was given ample warning but chose not to listen. As one cabinet minister told the ABC, the French knew Australia was troubled by the submarine contract, but didn't think Australia would dare tear it up.
The level of offence is still very great, and we will wait for that to subside.
A diplomatic firestorm on slow burn.
Is Scott Morrison's relationship with the French president salvageable at this point?
Well, Jeremy, it really has developed a nasty personal edge to this. Just consider where we are. We have a French president who's accused an Australian Prime Minister of being a liar, and the response to that is the leaking of private text messages from the president to the Prime Minister. It's hard to imagine this dispute getting any worse. Now, think of the months ahead. We have got both leaders approaching their own elections. We are due by probably about May next year. Macron is looking at re-election in April 15, I think it is. So both leaders will want to save face. They won't want to give any ground. And Emmanuel Macron has told Australia, he's told the Prime Minister, that it is Australia that needs to find the tangible actions to get the relationship back on track. There's no clue as to what they might be. Could be the Indo-Pacific, some sort of joint action. But we have the French ambassador. He's going to be performing, or he's going to be at the National Press Club, I should say, tomorrow. So perhaps he could tell us all what it is that France wants of Australia.
Andrew, here we are in Glasgow at the Climate Summit talking about submarines. Has this very public argument between the PM and President overshadowed this trip?
Look, very much so, and it all kicked off last week when we had the US President Joe Biden, who seemed to side with Macron in this dispute. He said that the whole matter had been handled clumsily and without enough grace. The Prime Minister, as you say, Germany, would have come to Glasgow thinking that climate change was going to be utterly dominant to his time here, both here and also in Rome, where the G20 nations were trying to strike a climate accord. That failed, of course. And it is the failure of what happened in G20 and what's developing here that probably will affirm Scott Morrison's mind that he's on the right track in terms of a political, if not environmental strategy. We have India who say now that they won't go for net zero until 2070. That's a full 20 years after the mark that was set for all nations here. And that's 2070 is 10 years after China and Russia were planning to hit the carbon neutral figure. So with those sorts of big polluters not going very far at all in climate ambition, Scott Morrison will only be affirmed in his own mind at least that he should stick with net zero by 2050 and do no more, that the focus should be on finding that technology that can transform everyone's economy. And so expect from Scott Morrison to hear a lot more about the economic opportunities that are available to Australia with a clean economy and clean energy.